And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doing Podcast. My name is Brendan Deek. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're going to be talking strictly Philadelphia Eagles today. No one else to do it than my man, my friend. I've missed him. He's looking good. Thomas Petersen is with me. Thomas, what's going on, man?
What's going on, Brandon? Long time no see.
It's been a while, man. I missed
Yeah,
it.
missing the Eagles. Missing doing this regularly.
It is. It's almost been a slow start to the summer. The month that I recorded a podcast yesterday. This is the second podcast recorded in almost like a month, and I felt like the month has kind of dragged on. But football season is fast approaching. The break is over from podcasting, and we're getting there, man. We are 81. We're Terrell Owens days away from the Philadelphia Eagles kicking off against the New England Patriots.
Yeah, we just need training camp to start. Then we actually get some things to talk about as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about a month away from that.
July 24th. So today is June 21st. So we are a month and 3 days away till the Eagles report to camp. They're out for the summer right now. I'm assuming everyone on the Eagles is probably on some sort of vacation. I'm sure Sirianni is lounging on a lawn chair somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
So we are going to kind of talk just some Eagles minicamp takeaways, maybe some quick roster battles, take a look around the division. Nothing too serious today, but we thought we'd get back on the mic and give you listeners some content. Why don't we start, Thomas, with Eagles minicamp? It happened last week, so they are officially out now, like I said, for the summer. What were your big takeaways from Eagles minicamp? I know you were following it pretty closely.
Yeah, so obviously these OTA practices here don't really mean too much. There are very little things to take away from it from like a big picture perspective. But it's good to see like some of the seeing how some of the guys out there are being talked about, and when they're moving around the team, like you see some of the new guys come in. Like we've been told and seen on tape how good a guy like Sidney, rookie safety here, Sidney Brown, looks in like how explosive he is, how fast he's moving around, and to really have that confirmed that he's flying around out there, and he's like his leap is really, really good. And that just continues to stand out even when he's surrounded by NFL players is one thing that's really good to see. Also, take another rookie in there, Nolan Smith, and how he, like every single rep he's in there, getting first team reps as well already in OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
And really one of the big things that stood out to me was that reporters constantly talking about how he hustled on every single play, basically as if he was an off-ball linebacker. And I thought that was a really interesting takeaway from it. Like, even though he lined up as a stand-up edge rusher, let Sam rush backer, that he was continuously rushing towards the opposite sideline and then all the way back. So, I mean, it's interesting because, like we talked about earlier, you just want to find ways to get Nolan Smith in the field. And if that's as an off-ball linebacker as well, like he dropped more in coverage in college and then he'd rush the passer. So I think that's really interesting.
So is Nolan Smith going to lead the Eagles in sacks this year? Are you going to jump on the Day and Cilio bandwagon with that take?
Good. Oh, God.
That was one of the crazier takes I've seen. Look, Nolan Smith's going to be a good player, but I don't think he's beating out Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick in sacks.
Every single crazy take you can find from Dan Cilio is just worse than the other.
Just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
I think the linebacker position, Thomas, was one of the more interesting ones. Nakobe Dean wearing the green dot for this team.
Are you surprised?
Not surprised, but I'm maybe this early. Also, Nicholas Morrow wasn't out there, so Nakobe Dean was kind of the guy you'd pass it off to. But I'm assuming he was going to be wearing the green dot anyways.
Yeah. I would try to flip it around there. I'll be worried if he wasn't, because I mean that's the natural spot that he has to take now, and so might as well get it in OTA so you can try and even though he's the green dot guy doesn't mean he's any good at it at this point. So I mean he's got to go through like the ups and downs of it throughout training camp. So why not just give him some goals at it in OTAs when the playbook is limited, and then gets easier from there.
That's fair. And Sean Desai kind of still learning who his players are, and getting familiar with the Eagles defense. So let's talk about the guy. This guy's actually been getting a ton of he was, in my opinion, the most talked about defensive player for the Eagles during minicamp, and that's Christian Elliss. So he was in the starting linebacker spot. He was getting first team reps for the Eagles. Like I said, Nicholas Morrow wasn't there. Are you buying the Christian Elliss hype?
I mean, it's always impressive when you have a guy, even though it's 7-on-7, and there's no rush and there's no offensive line to read. It becomes a lot easier playing linebacker because one of the primary jobs of a linebacker is obviously reading the offensive line and having that play recognition. And so when you're doing these 7-on-7 pass skelly things here, you're obviously cheating a ton, like everybody is. Nobody is really respecting, that second that it takes post snap to read what actually goes on before you drop into coverage. So every linebacker is going to look better. Cornerbacks is a little bit different, like cornerbacks and safeties, because obviously their first read is going to be pass first, and then they adjust to the run afterwards. Linebacker is a lot different. So when you actually have live football going on, like you can take where he made that interception, you can put him a good 5 yards away from that because that's about the second that he has to run to that spot when he's reading. So they're going to look better when it's pass only skelly. I take everything that the linebackers produce in training camp with a grain of salt. But that being said, it's always good to see that they actually do make plays when they're there and not getting burned despite not having to read an offensive line.
He had a juicy interception on Jalen Hurts, apparently.
Yeah, and another one on Mariota and a pass breakup as well against Dallas Goedert. So good things are out there. Good things around. But I will say when from the limited snap Christian Elliss got on the field last year, slow play recognition was his vulnerability. So it'll be good to see when he actually gets to preseason and he has to play in the games and actually read offensive lines just to see if that projects. If he's taken that next step, if everything, the cliche that things have slowed down for a player, we always hear that all the time. That'll be interesting to see if that translates when live action goes on.
Yeah, the Tennessee. It's funny. The end of the Tennessee Titans game this last season. If you want to kind of get a scout on Nakobe Dean and Christian Elliss, go back and watch the last two drives of the Titans game because both Ellis and Dean were both playing, and they both got. I think they played the entire last two drives, and they both made some good plays. I actually went back and watched some of Christian Elliss in that game. I liked what I saw. I think he's a little stand up though. I'd like to see him kind of get lower. He's a big guy, like Christian Elliss. That's what kind of interests me with him. He brings some size. Like he's 6'3", 231 pounds. And I kind of have this. I don't know if they're very comparable, but if you take a look at TJ Edwards, so TJ Edwards' rookie season or his first year playing in 2019, he started 4 games. And then next year in 2020, he started 12 and then 14. And then last year he played all 7. He started all 17 games in 2022. This is going to be Christian Ellis's second, I guess, playing time season with the Eagles. I'm assuming he's going to make the roster just from special teams. Like even if Christian Elliss doesn't start, he's going to be on the roster just due to special teams. He played really well in special teams last year for the Eagles. He's one of their better special teams players. It's kind of Thomas a similar kind of career path here. Like the only person in front of Christian Elliss that's going to take playing time away from him is Nicholas Morrow. Are you 100% confident that Nicholas Morrow is going to be on the roster?
Yeah. I don't think the linebacker depth is that great. I don't think there's anyone
fair.
really competing with him. And Nicholas Morrow is the only sort of like veteran presence around those guys. Like Christian Elliss, second starting season.
Davion Taylor doesn't bring that veteran presence that you want.
I guess he can run a little bit fast. That's it.
That's fair.
Yeah, and Sean Bradley obviously there as well. I think it's more a competition between Christian Elliss and Sean Bradley, but I think all 4 of those guys are going to make the team. Like Morrow, Dean, Ellis, and Bradley are going to be making the team strictly from a special team standpoint.
Yeah, and I was taking a look at Nicholas Morrow's contract. They didn't give him he had $100K of guaranteed money. Like this was a strictly you're trying out for this team. Like we're not giving you we're not throwing you a bone here at all. So if the Eagles were to cut Nicholas Morrow, it would be $0 in dead money. They would save $1,090,000. So it would be a seamless transition if they did want to cut him. I think him not being there at minicamp and giving Ellis kind of that first team reps does open the door for some competition here. And like I said, him and TJ Edwards now, like it's similar career paths. We've seen an undrafted rookie linebacker come in and start for this roster. So I don't see why it can't be any different with Christian Elliss. Again, it's only mini camp. Like you said, take the linebackers with a grain of salt. It's like a lot of read and react. If you get burned in 7-on-7 as a linebacker, the coaches aren't going to get on you. And if you make a play, you're going to look good. So
a bit of a counterpoint. I think you're right just in terms of that career trajectory there. But TJ Edwards has always been a really good linebacker from a box perspective. Like he's always read plays really well, shed blocks well, made tackles well. And the reason that he went undrafted was due to a poor 40 time, and people had real concerns about him in coverage. Now he turned out to be one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL by his 4th season, so that's good for him. No, a 5th season, he got extended a year. Whereas Christian Elliss has never really been known to be that top end like box player. Like you said, he brings size, so if he can put it together, that's obviously great for him. But yeah, I'm a little bit more pessimistic from the Christian Elliss, like what he's going to end up being. But yeah, like you said, all these guys that they brought in this year, like Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans, Greedy Williams, Rashad Penny.
You forget about Justin Evans. I forgot that guy.
All these guys that they brought in, Nicholas Morrow, they're all extremely expendable. Like they have contracts that make it like they can be cut tomorrow, each and every one of them. So that means that they have a lot of moving pieces around here on the team.
Funny, I completely forgot about Justin Evans, and like I always forget that the Eagles also signed Kentavious Street as well. Whenever,
him as well. Yeah, that's the same story.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the linebacker position is, I think that starting spot between Nicholas Morrow, Christian Elliss, or whoever you want to put there, I think is probably the most interesting starting spot that you're going to be seeing in training camp. I also wouldn't put it past Howie to make a move potentially and add a linebacker there. We can talk about some other free agents that are on the market in a bit, but or a trade possibility. Like, does Patrick Queen interest you at all?
Nah. I don't think he's about to be paid. You're going to pay something for it. Like you got to be trading for him. I would be surprised if they bring anyone in. I think they have a solid enough group as to where they have some guys that they want to throw in there, and they even have a backup plan. And like even if it's Morrow or Ellis or Bradley, like I think they're fine with the linebacker room they have. We know they don't want to invest anything in it, both from a draft position and also from a money situation. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be bringing anyone in. Would it be an upgrade? Sure, but I don't think they're going to do it.
TJ Edwards ran a 4.87 40-yard dash. That's great. He played a lot faster than that.
Yeah, he's always done that. Yeah.
Christian Elliss ran a 4.58. It's a big boy. Like, running a 4.58, 6'3", 231 pounds. That's a big boy moving right there, Thomas.
Yeah, but that's what the scouts love. They love those numbers.
Okay, before we move on, I have to tell you about my sponsor, Sweat Tailor. If you're like me, you're tired of trying to find jeans that fit right no matter your build and still look good. Introducing the newest sponsor of the Double Doing Podcast, Sweat Tailor, a premium menswear brand that is defining a new kind of casual. I started wearing Sweat Tailor and I'm blown away by how comfortable and affordable the clothes are. And of course, they look great. From jackets and hoodies, pants to joggers, Sweat Tailor's designs are made to seamlessly fit into your life, moving from runway to office, office to drinks, and drinks to wherever the night takes you. Specializing in casual wear for men, pieces are designed with comfort and versatility in mind for your everyday life. Use promo code BDEAGST, that's B as in Brendan, DEEGST, for 25% off. Again, that's BDEAGST for 25% off your order at sweattailor.com. Please support Sweat Tailor. Awesome company. Awesome company. These clothes are great. I've already got a stain on my shirt, though, Thomas. It's 7:30 in the morning, and I've already stained my Sweat Tailor hoodie. So gonna have to change before I go to the office.
I hope you got a pack of those in the back there. You can change it up.
If you are, here's a question for you. I want to buy a new Eagles jersey. Okay, so my Eagles jerseys I've got are AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Fletcher Cox. I have a Wentz one that I'm going to turn into an AJ Brown one. So I don't like it's all of 2 AJ Brown jerseys. Do I have what other jerseys do I have? I think that's it. I have a Rager jersey in the back of my closet, Thomas, that I don't know what to do with. Where do you think that goes? Goodwill, garbage? Where should I put that one?
Do you have any memories that are good that are connected to the jersey?
do I have any good memories connected to a Jalen Reagor white Eagles
Yeah,
jersey?
like anyone at all. Did anything special happen in your life when you bought that jersey?
I remember throwing it off my chest after the Buccaneers playoff game, after the fumbled punt. Is that a good memory?
You tell me.
So I don't know what to do with that jersey. What
Yeah, that's
Jason? Should I go
garbage.
Jason Kelce? I'm gonna get one more this summer. Do I go Jason Kelce or Jalen Hurts? I think I gotta go Jason Kelce. Like
Yeah, you
I
do.
don't I don't like wearing like like I think I gotta get a Hurts jersey at some point, but maybe I can wait on that. Like I don't need to get one right away. I feel like a Kelce jersey is the way to go.
Yeah, that's the move. That's the move. I have one rule when I'm buying a jersey, and it is that the player that of the jersey that I'm buying could blow his knees off tomorrow, never play a snap again, and it'd still have meaning. Like I'd still have a great story connected to the jersey. Like it would never become expendable, like your Jalen Reagor jersey or your Carson Wentz jersey or all these, like where you like the player when you buy it, but the moment that, like, if he plays a terrible season the next season, you'll still have great memories to that jersey. Like I bought an Alshon Jeffrey jersey, and
Okay.
that whole contract situation sucked afterwards, but he'll always be one of the best receivers in the Eagles history, simply from the fact that he took a team to the promised land with a massive performance that season and in the playoffs there. So, I mean, I got the Alshon jersey with like the Super Bowl logo on, and so it sucked afterwards. The whole contract thing. He was injured all the time, but it's still a great. It's still a great story.
You could rock, yeah, you could rock Alshon anytime, anywhere. Like you would
Yeah,
never get
exactly. So, like Jalen Hurts, you buy a Jalen Hurts jersey. He gets traumatized this season. He never plays a snap again in his life. He's not the same quarterback. Do you like the jersey? Eagles just threw away like a shit ton of money and gave away the biggest contract in the NFL to a guy who doesn't play well anymore, and he's off the team. Do you have any good memories of it? I mean, he took the team to a Super Bowl and lost, so he was an MVP runner-up. It's the same story with Wentz at that point, and yeah, so I would stay off of Jalen Hurts jersey. I see the intrigue, I see the trajectory of it, but I don't have enough money as to where I can just spend like $100 on a jersey and the player sucks.
That's fair. I think the co-host of my podcast, Eric Warner, who I do the like in-person episodes with, one of my best friend, he works for a jersey company. Like his job is to make like hockey jerseys and jerseys for like the community. Like it's like a small company, so he can literally take the Wentz patch off, slap Brown on there, and
That's
we got a
smart.
whole new jersey. Yeah, like
That's smart.
I don't want to be. I can't wear a Wentz jersey anymore, man. I just can't do it. But excuse
That's
me, but
smart, though. I mean, that strategy is awesome. Like, if you know a guy like that, then you're good. You just need to get the number right.
exactly. Here's a question. I don't think I've ever asked you this. How did you become an Eagles fan?
Long story. Well, basically, so I was what was I? Was I 9 or 10? And we had a local team called the Ringcoving Eagles. And we had it was a very local club, basically started by a bunch of high schoolers who like to play football or like to hit each other. Basically, like they saw something, like they saw it on the TV, and they basically fundraised a small local club there. And my big brother was he was the quarterback of the team, obviously. So he would train me. He was 16 years old. And he would train my like team. So we were like, what were like 10 or 11 like small dudes running around there, and we would be playing in white and blue. I think we were more more related to like seagulls. So like it looked more like like seagull. Also, the logo
Well,
looked
no,
more like it.
it doesn't. Eagles jerseys, like we played a team. Like there's a high school near me that were the Eagles, and they were also blue and yellow.
Oh,
So
there you
it's
go.
not crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. And so that whole community was kind of created there, and we'd be watching games together. We'd be watching like the Eagles, obviously, because that's what the name of the club was, and they were playing the Cowboys. I remember, and I just thought that the same thing. The jerseys looked cool. Some of the players were cool there. Like Brian Dawkins obviously stood out, and that whole intro that he did kind of got me going a little bit more. And so it just that natural flow where you just get more and more invested in it emotionally. So when you're watching other games, you're like, they're cool, but when you're watching that team, it's just an extra spicy feeling of it. Um, and yeah, then I just religiously followed it ever since then. And yeah. And so obviously it all culminated when I went to Philadelphia the first time. It was in 2013 or 15. I went there and went like a little round trip in the States. saw like 5 games in a span of 30 days or something. Like, it was very compact. And no, it wasn't 15 because it was Sam Bradford and DeMarco Murray, and they were so
Oh
shitty.
yeah, that was
Like
that was
it
one of
was
the worst Eagles years.
yeah.
That 2015 team was
Oh yeah.
awful.
And like, I think that was my litmus test of it. Like, they sucked so bad, and I was still a fan. So like, there was no
Yeah.
turning back from that point.
So you would have been 9 or 10. Do
Yeah.
you remember what year that Eagles team was? Do you
No
remember?
idea. No.
No idea.
I have no idea. I just remember some of the players there. I don't know what the record was. I don't know how they did. I think they actually lost to the Cowboys in the playoffs that year. Maybe.
So that would have been 06. I'm trying to remember. Lost the Cowboys in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Actually, obviously, it's a long time ago. Like 20 years ago now.
2009 is when they lost in the wild card round to the Cowboys in the playoffs. So
yeah, so that may a little bit like that may be around that time where I was getting really into it there, and then that whole process up to that has just been kind of like getting more and more invested in it.
So do you remember 08 at all? Were you a fan during the 08 run? Were you a fan during the 08 run?
Yeah, but I don't remember any details of it.
No. Oh man, that run, that was like you said, the litmus test, like test your fan base. Like I was 12 when the 2008 team, 12 or 13, but I remember every game of that season so vividly. Like that was when I really, really, really started to follow the Eagles. Like I was an Eagles fan. I remember 2002, the loss to the Buccaneers. That was like kind of the very first year. I would have been 7 or 8 years old when that happened. And then I remember the loss to the Panthers a little bit, but like I don't remember any regular season games. And then the Super Bowl year, like I remember watching TO like that year.
Yeah,
I just remember watching, just being obsessed with Terrell Owens that entire year. I was obsessed with Terrell Owens.
Yeah. I also think we were a little bit limited by the fact that there weren't that many games being showed.
Yeah, that you couldn't, like, there was no cable, like you don't have cable television like this year now. There was no streaming.
No, so we would have 3 games per week that would be showed on television. That was one of the 1 o'clock games, 1-4, and then obviously the night game would be showed. So it was always a little bit random. So you'd be going on highlights and stuff like that. I think the first season I really remember like in detail, where I think that's when I got Game Pass actually was 2010, and the Michael Vick whole season
baby
with the Redskins game.
Yeah.
That's when I got Game Pass. So then it would stay up in the middle of the night, starting from then, and then like been watching every game since there.
So that 2010 year turned you into a psycho, basically. Staying
yeah, basically, yeah, and that was I think that's the season I remember the most. Other than that, it's basically like most like players and like flash games that will be showed on television and recapped and stuff like that.
That's funny. It's great. Like it always baffles me, man, that you're a diehard Eagles fan and you live across the pond. Like, are there do you have any friends that are like other fan bases, like not Eagles fans, or do you know people that are like diehard like Vikings fans or something like that?
Yeah, they pop up from time to time. I think it's obviously very different how people are invested in it. Like some people do that, like they take a lot of trips over to their team or to their favorite team. They watch some games there, so they're like more invested in that. They use time travel and like basically put in the time to go there and invest a lot of money in it like that. And then there are some that just religiously stay up and watch every game, and they suffer at work from doing so because they have to watch all the night games and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's more like the fans that really are into it here are really into it. I always say, and it's probably a little controversial, but I always say that the very invested fans here in like across the pond, and it's also true for Germany and all these countries. They have to do so much to get the content of it. They have to seek up the Game Pass themselves. They have to stay up in the middle of the night to watch the games. Like they're naturally going to be spending more time in rules and transactions and player developments and all this kind of thing because they just can't get enough of it. Whereas I think the average American fan gets they just get fed of all this stuff throughout their childhood. So like I think they don't care as much a little bit, but yeah,
that's fair. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see on social media like fans of teams, like let's say you live in Philadelphia, you personally think that only Philadelphians can be diehard fans of that
Oh
team.
yeah,
If that
that's
makes
so
sense.
funny.
It drives me nuts. Like you make a great point. Like you have to do so much extra work to be a
I
fan.
don't think they realize just how many fans are like from like Barcelona fans or Real Madrid fans or like Manchester United and City
Exactly.
fans.
Yeah.
No, like, come on. Like, your little shitty team here and your little state doesn't mean anything. Like, you know how many millions of people are watching? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like I always get the question like how you become a diehard Eagles fan in Canada. It's just like I love the sport, and like that's what like my dad's a diehard Washington Redskins, was a Washington Redskins fan, like diehard, like in the early 90s, late 80s. My dad was obsessed with that like that team. Like my dad actually became a fan of the Washington Redskins because when he was a kid, he was like 8 or 9 years old. He's growing up in like just outside of Toronto. You only get like 2 games on television or 3 games. There's the Cowboys, Vikings, and Redskins were always on TV. Those are the local games. A Commanders quarterback or Redskins quarterback back then broke his nose. He shoved a tampon up his nose and tissue paper up his nose and kept playing. And my dad was like, "That's so cool. Like I like this guy
yeah,
a lot."
it's
Yeah,
little things like that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. He's like a 10-year-old kid, a German immigrant family in Toronto, and he's like, I like that. Like, that's cool as fuck. So, and
if you weren't going to be an Eagles fan, who do you think you've been a fan of there? It's just from some of the iconic things you've been watching at the time when you started.
The Bills.
The Bills?
The Bills are a local team here. I'm about an hour and a half away from the Buffalo border. Buffalo is like basically the Toronto's hometown team. I have a soft spot for the Bills. I still really like if the Eagles were say eliminated from the playoffs or contention, like the Bills would be the team I root for. I know there's Bills fans everywhere from where I'm from. Like I have buddies who are Bills fans. Josh Allen helped that out a lot. Like there's a lot of bandwagon Bills fans nowadays because like the Bills didn't make the playoffs for like 20 years in a row or something like that. For basically my entire childhood, the Bills have been a bad team, but the Bills came to Toronto. They had the Toronto series. My dad went to a Bills Redskins game there, and I think he went to the Bears game as well. Like the Bills played 5 games out of the Sky Dome was where the Toronto Blue Jays play. So the Bills would be the second team, but yeah, I never had any other fascination with any other team. Like the Eagles have always been kind of like I said, since that 04 team is right when my fan base started. And then 2008, man, like that was the year where I was all in. Like that, I still remember crying my eyes out on the couch after the Cardinals got that, or after Don McNabb's pass was incomplete to Kevin Curtis. Yeah. Should have been a penalty. Still to this day, the ref should have thrown that flag. That was holding or pass interference. I will take that to the grave. It still drives me nuts. I was bawling my eyes out, Thomas, as a 12-year-old. I remember where it was like a family event too. My uncles were there, my aunts were there, and I'm fucking crying my eyes out. I was wearing I used to be obsessed with Dante Stallworth. I used to like he had that 1 year in 06 with the Eagles. I still have this Dante Stallworth jersey in the back of my closet somewhere. I still remember crying my eyes out with that Dante Stallworth jersey. I remember I never got a new jersey. That was like 4 years after Dante Stallworth was. I think he got like charged with like manslaughter or something like a few years ago. Like he had a really rough post Eagles career. But yeah, like he hit someone with his car or something. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah,
I think for me, like always been a linebacker guy. Obviously, it's what I played myself all the time, and I guess I always watch Brian Dawkins a little bit more of like a linebacker than a safety. Yeah. And I think for me, if I was to be a fan of anyone else, it probably would have been the Bears, because of Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs. Yeah, like that duo was so fun to watch. Or a little bit if I would have gone in a little bit later, probably would have been the 49ers. Like Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman were like those two teams, like that Bears and 49ers tandem was enough for me to just be entertained while watching football. Ravens always rubbed me the wrong way. Like I like really?
They have really cool Ray jerseys. Lewis. Did you ever think their jerseys? Like I always thought when I was a kid, they had really cool uniforms.
Yeah, but I think Joe Flacco kind of ruined it for me. Like I really liked Ray Lewis, but Yeah, no, the rest of the guy, like Ray Rice wasn't a big fan. Terrell Suggs wasn't a big
Oh yeah.
fan. Joe Flacco was not a big fan at all. Ed Reed, I always thought was lucky. Like looking back, obviously he was a good player, but I always thought he was always being talked so much about, how he's always in the right spot at the right time. I guess that's right, but like he's just one of those guys. Like I think for a while that we called him tip pass Reed because because he made so many picks off of like tip passes. That Ravens never really caught on to me there, but yeah,
Yeah.
Bears and 49ers were really a hit.
Well, thank God you didn't turn out to be a Bears fan. That would have sucked.
Yeah, that would have sucked. That would have been a lifetime of misery.
My best friend who I brought up, the Jersey guy, he's a diehard Bears fan. Like that's what the Double Doink podcast is based off, like Eagles,
Yeah.
Chicago. Like that's how we came up. And he's exactly like you. He still thinks linebacker is the most important position in football. Because he grew up loving Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and like he's still. And we always have this argument about like how linebacker is a dying position. He's like, no, like it's still that's his bread and butter. That's what he grew up on, man. And it's funny, like he. If you're a Bears fan, you don't even know good quarterback play if it smacked you right in the face. Like Jay Cutler is their leading passer of all time.
Yeah. Jay Cutler was just a Mr. I don't give a shit.
So one more question on this kind of off topic. I like this conversation though. If you were, I tweeted this out the other day. The best Eagles quarterback seasons, my favorite Eagles quarterback seasons. I tweeted a couple weeks ago. You brought up 2010 Vic. 2010
yeah, that'll be my answer any day of the week.
I think it's not even a question. Like 2010 Vic, like Hurts was awesome last year. Wentz was awesome in 2017. Like they were, like they both balled out. Like Hurts second MVP voting. Like Wentz should have won MVP that year. There was something about watching 2010 Vic that like I can't explain to people. Like it was like, the way he played quarterback I've never seen before. As a 15-year-old kid, I've never seen the position played like that. And you could say, "Oh, he did Atlanta." No. This was a different player. Like he was throwing the ball, he was running the ball. Like Atlanta Vic was strictly like excitement from the running aspect. You never got like Vic would like sit in the pocket and dice you up with Andy Reid. Like that was like such an illegal combo. Like the NFL should have vetoed the Patrick Mahomes to the Chiefs draft because we were like, we gave Vic Andy Reid like in the 1 year's prime. We can't allow Mahomes to go to Reid in his prime. Like the NFL should have vetoed it. They should have saw this coming. But yeah, like I don't even think it's a question. 2010 Vic is the best Eagle season, quarterback season. Maybe Hurts breaks it in the future, but like I don't know how. Like that was
for me. It's also like it's all it. I try not to overcomplicate those things. Like I always just think, what was the most memorable for me? Like what stands out? If I have to sit and really think about, all right, was that better? Like look up stats and all that, then it kind of ruins the exercise for me. Like the first thing that pops up in my head is always the one I'll go with there because that's obviously the thing that was more imprinted in the time that I've been watching, and I remember what I was doing, what time of day it was, and what the feeling was when you were watching those games there. And there's so many examples of that with Vic in that season. Yeah, I think that's more memorable because there's so many games there that were like you could never count it out.
Yeah, like when he came in that Packers game, like even week 1, like when Kevin Cobb goes down, Clay Matthews takes him out, basically ends his career on that play. Like Michael Vick comes in and just dominates. And like I remember he didn't throw an interception till like I want to say like week 10 or something. I can pull it up, but like he was so accurate with the ball. Like he was so good in those first weeks, like that Washington game. I remember that Jacksonville game. Like do you remember that comeback against Jacksonville? Like he was throwing the ball everywhere. They it wasn't a comeback. They destroyed Jacksonville that year. That I remember the LA Chargers game that year. I think it was. I could be wrong. That might have been a different year. To pull it up in front of me, but he was that year. Like it was the most fun I've had watching a football player. Maybe earlier Brian Dawkins, of course, but 2010 Vic was one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah, that season just sucked because of the Packers. Like they lost the first game when he got in against the Packers and lost the last game of the playoffs against the Packers. When I really thought they were going to win it there at the end against Green Bay.
David Akers, man, I love you, but didn't come through in that game. Okay, that was fun. Why don't we're already 34 minutes in. We'll dive on a couple more topics and we'll get out of here. Quez Watkins, Thomas, he's been getting a lot of talk throughout minicamp here. He
Really?
had apparently a nice play down the sidelines from a pass from Jalen Hurts in minicamp. What do you think the future is for Quez Watkins? Do you think he is the week 1 wide receiver 3 starter?
In an ideal scenario, he's not starting on the field. Like, he could be the wide receiver 3, but he's not on the field. I think that would be the ideal scenario for me.
Like, you think they should play like 12 personnel more this year? Like,
Yeah,
what would you?
I think they have the tight. I think they have the tight ends to do that. I like Stahl, I like Calcaterra. I think Tyree Jackson is, if he stays healthy, could be a player on the team, and get some reps in there. I think Tyree Jackson as a rotational tight end too, along with Calcaterra and Stahl, next to Dallas Goedert, naturally as the guy always in there, is more intriguing to me than having AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins in there as 3 wide receivers. And I think it adds more to their style of offense, and that they want to run the ball a ton. Like, the blocking ability of the guys at the tight end position is obviously a lot better. I think Quez Watkins gets a lot of slack because we had unrealistic expectations for him. I think it's a little bit on us as well as fans that we thought too much of him. He was never more than a maximum, like a max wide receiver 3. And through years of suffering at the wide receiver position, a guy like Quez comes in, he's fast, and we're all intrigued by it. But so obviously we had high expectations, and he fell extremely flat and had a very costly fumble in each of the Eagles' losses last season, or a costly either drop or fumble in every single one of the few losses that they had last season, and the Super Bowl in particular. That drop he had there was all, like, obviously crucial.
Still haunts me, baby. Still haunts
Yeah,
me.
I really like the addition of Olamide Zaccheaus. So even
Mhm.
though Nick Sirianni comes out and says that he has a ton of confidence in Quest, blah blah blah, this coach talk and how he has, I like that he has his player, the back of his player, but action speaks louder than words. And they brought in Olamide, and is another one of those guys who can be cut, but he has one of the lowest job rates over the last few years in the NFL. And
Yep.
yeah, I think that's gonna be a roster battle, and if I hope that they put the bias out of it and how Quez Watkins is homegrown talent and all that, because I don't think he really deserves more than being a maximum of a wide receiver 3, probably a 4 or 5, or not even on the team. So yeah, I think Olamide, like the competition there. I think the tight ends are gonna should be demanding more roster spots than receivers.
Okay. Are there any I guess outside of Zaccheaus, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Quez Watkins, are there any other receivers on the roster that intrigue you? Like, are there any other guys that you think could
I
step up?
really have no idea. Like, Greg Ward is always
Like, yeah.
around,
Well,
but
Greg Ward has been
it doesn't really
intrigued.
intrigue you. Like
Yeah,
Ron Allen and Britton Covey, they're going to be competing for a punt return
yeah.
job.
Charleston Rambo is also Jaden Hasselwood.
I know
I think,
nothing about those guys.
yeah.
Tyree Cleveland is a name. Like, I have no idea who those guys
Joseph
are at all.
Nada. Do you know what? I don't even know what Joseph Nada
Yeah,
existed until today.
no, I know
Unfortunately,
they're
we
bigger
started
receiver
Joseph Nada.
type, or bigger type receivers, and that just doesn't do it for me. I think the tight ends of the Eagles complement the size of the receivers more than other wide receivers do. So until we see anything else, I'm a little bit up in the air about it.
The reason I ask is because if the Eagles are going to try to trim some, like, let's say they are very comfortable with a receiver at the bottom of the depth chart, or they're really comfortable in Zaccheaus, Quez Watkins' contract opens up an avenue for the Eagles to save some money. The Eagles would save around $2.7 million if they were to cut him, or if they were to trade him. I don't know if they're going to be able to find a trade partner necessarily for him, but $2.7 million isn't nothing. And we've seen the Eagles discard wide receivers that they've drafted before. They got rid of John Hightower pretty early. They traded Jalen Reagor after a couple years. Like, the Eagles are not afraid to move around homegrown wide receiver talent that they've drafted, that are kind of third, fourth, fifth wide receivers. Like, they don't need to hold on to these guys. So just the reason I asked, like, let's say Quez Watkins does struggle in camp and doesn't look good or whatever. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's not on the roster week 1.
Agree.
I don't know about Zaccheaus, though. Like, I don't know how comfortable they are going to be with him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think Zaccheaus has had He's always the guy that I watched with the Falcons and thought he was better than his positional value was, like how he was the wide receiver 3 there as well. I think it was a really comfortable position for him, and I think he did really good at that position. He's a sure-handed receiver. He has a lot of experience. I like the profile.
Okay, I think that's it. We're going to touch on the defensive back room and safety room a little bit, but why don't we save that for a future episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's been 40 minutes. That was a really cool conversation. I was interested to hear about your background with Eagles. I never got the whole story before.
Yeah, it was a good talk.
Okay, so Thomas and I are planning on doing an episode over the next couple of weeks on drafting our all-time Eagles team from offense and defense. Maybe we do it like from the 2000s start, because I don't know, like I got Eagles knowledge before 2000, but not a ton. Like I don't want to be. What's your Eagles history knowledge at? Like, would you be able to draft guys before 2000?
No, there are a few number of guys that I know. Obviously, like a Harold Carmichael, I can always pop in there. But it's mostly from
2000
stats, accolades, and obviously there's some highlights here and there. So I don't have any personal feelings about those players.
You said you were a linebacker guy. Were you around for Jeremiah Trotter?
I think I was, but I didn't see too much. Like he wasn't a guy that I followed.
Yeah, he was a little earlier. His kid I think it's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I don't know if he's like one of the best linebacker prospects in the nation coming up in the draft, I believe.
Ooh, where does he play?
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He plays for Clemson.
When is he eligible?
He is. Let me just pull that up. Could be a sophomore right now. I think he's coming into the next year. Yeah, so he will be a junior this year. So this will be his draft year.
Huh.
We're getting old, man. Asante Samuel's kid is already in the NFL. Jeremiah Trotter's kid's coming up in the NFL. Randy Moss is a kid that's already been in the NFL. It's we're getting to the point where our idols' kids are now going to be taking over the league.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Thomas and I are planning on drafting our all-time Eagles team. Maybe we'll probably do 2000s on. Well, that'll be in a couple weeks. That'll be a fun episode. Training camp begins, like I said, in a month and 3 days. I have some cool interviews lined up, some Eagles interviews focused based over the next month. So make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Tons of cool content coming up over the next month. And then when training camp opens, baby, we're going full blast here, the Double Doink Podcast. So again, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to check out our sponsor, Sweat Taylor and BetterHelp. And we will talk to you later.